a theory called Indigenous Theory of Health and Wellness. I created, researched, and synthesized this theory that originated from my published doctoral dissertation on ancient Basque spiritual beliefs. I later published an article on a cross-cultural theory for social work practice. And I recently, this last year, published a book from the University of Nevada, Reno Center for Basque Studies, outlining these ancient 7 pathways in my book, The Millhouse Speaks, 7 Pathways to the Ancestral Basque Homeland. So as you can see, this is a major life purpose and interest of mine to study this topic. First, it's important to start with a definition of health and wellness from an Indigenous perspective. From an Indigenous perspective, health and wellness means an alignment of what we feel, our emotions, how we think, our cognition, what we do, our behaviors and actions, and what we say, not just verbally, but in our nonverbal communication. Health and wellness it's not just the absence of disease, but it's the presence of certain elements that's found within Indigenous cultures throughout the world. The Indigenous theory of health and wellness outlines these elements in 7 ways. And I do want to note that it is very important that we have Indigenous theories in academia and in our curriculum so that we can inspire a paradigm shift to be able to integrate more cross-cultural theories that affect practice and policy and teaching in the social and behavioral sciences. There is a tremendous gap in cross-cultural and particularly Indigenous theory that relates to health and wellness, and this has been very well researched by many Indigenous theorists and scholars. So this is an area that there's a tremendous need for a shift, and also to acknowledge that Indigenous knowledge is a type of evidence-based practice, perhaps not in the way that it's viewed through the lens of Western research, but certainly through thousands of years of knowledge and wisdom. So I'd like to present to you the 7 pathways of Indigenous health and wellness and how they correspond with the major areas of life and development. These are not linear or sequential. They're circular. They are nonlinear. They don't follow a particular path, but rather patterns within our lives that follow major milestones and areas of development. The first pathway is the way of wholeness. And the way of wholeness is reflected in personal development. When we think of wholeness, we think of the infant, we think of the young child as being whole. And the journey of personal development is lifelong. It integrates many losses and traumas from the underworld through healing and growth to be able to manifest health and wellness in the upper world. The second is the way of the ancestors, and the ancestors are revered in Indigenous cultures worldwide. The ancestors correlate and correspond with relationships, strengthening and building relationships both present and past with our ancestors. The third is the way of the home. And the way of the home balances work and family life. The home as being representative of the center of spiritual life and a reflection of health. The fourth is the way of the land. And the way of the land corresponds with life purpose and belonging. The journey we all share to have meaning and purpose in our lives is reflected within the wisdoms of nature. The fifth is the way of the village. The way of the village corresponds with community relations. We think of building community and the importance of the village as tied to health and wellness. This is an area of particular interest in the social and behavioral sciences, as well as health and human services, in finding ways to bridge and integrate with Indigenous and Native people in the community to be able to have healthy communities for all. And this also relates to the community of learners that we have here at Purdue Global, wanting to create a diverse community of learners that is reflective of all the diverse ways of knowing and all of the diverse wisdoms that our students bring to the table and also to our colleagues as well. And that's an important point that I want to also focus on, is just the importance of bringing forth the experiential wisdoms of all of the participants in the learning community. The sixth is the way of two worlds. And the way of two worlds is a phenomenon that corresponds with coping with loss and life transitions. And when I say loss in the context of Indigenous health, loss is all types of loss. Trauma can be included in that loss. Loss not just in terms of death and grief and bereavement, but loss of spiritual health, loss of physical, mental, emotional, all aspects of mind, body, and spirit. The way of two worlds is a phenomenon that is reflective in Indigenous wisdom. And then last but not least is the way of the universe. And the way of the universe is health, health in terms of balance and peace and harmony, and a health and wellness that integrates all 7 aspects of health in terms of wholeness, ancestors, the home, land, and village, between personal development, relationships, work, family, having a sense of life purpose and belonging, being a part of community, and having tools and resources to cope with life's transitions. I also have a chart that you can access, that there's a link provided in a PDF right here that you can access, and that is actually the full chart, and that chart will take you through the 7 pathways, the corresponding areas and their life meaning, daily life actions, the inner qualities and character attributes that relate to each of those pathways, the life lessons that we can learn so deeply from nature, which is really the heart of Indigenous wellness, and corresponding planting cycles that relate to your life dream, with specific tools for building that life dream. So I want to thank you. If you have further questions, of course, I'll take questions now, but you can also contact